Hello, it's January 23rd, 2025, and it's time for the weekly word, and the weekly word is practice. Our key verse is Matthew 23, verse 1 to 3. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. So do and observe whatever they tell you, but not the works that they do, for they preach, but they do not practice. So that's where the expression practice what you preach comes from. And it's interesting here, there's two groups of people. There's the crowds and there's the disciples. And there was a distinction between them. So the definition of practice is to do something. It's beyond just observing. It's an actual application or use, a repeated exercise in an activity to develop or maintain skill and proficiency. A key there, it's either to develop, but also to maintain. So I started reading a new book that my son Bobby highly recommended, and it's called Practicing the Way by Mark Comer. And part of what I'm getting out of it is that the word practice is a little bit more of a precise understanding of what it means to be a disciple in our culture today than the word follow. Because when Jesus called his disciples, he said, "Follow me." But today with social media, you can follow all kinds of people. You can follow swamp people catching alligators in Louisiana. You can follow people living off the land in the wilderness of Alaska. You can follow Elon Musk. You can follow a movie star, an athlete. You can follow all these people and never have actually been where they are or done what they do. But the biblical understanding of a follower, a disciple, is one who practices, one who actually stood up, left everything, and started walking. That's what the disciples were. They practiced. So, this culture of following only in the sense of finding something interesting has also affected how many people approach their relationship with God. When they say they follow him, is it just that they find him interesting, or are they actually practicing everything that Jesus said? So, do you follow me? That's an expression we use, and it means, are you tracking along with my thoughts? Do you understand? But again, the number one part of practicing means you actually do something. The second main part of practicing is understanding that you will probably do it wrong the first time or improperly or struggle with it at first until you develop a certain level of skill or proficiency in that area. Are you willing to struggle with something for a while in order to get to a place where you're better at it, where you have skill? Are you willing to practice? The third main part is that even professionals keep practicing. Top sports legends, the best in the world, they keep practicing even after they've won the greatest titles and championships and gold medals. Just to maintain what you've learned in a language, you have to keep practicing. Amazing piano players keep practicing. If you're going to be an effective communicator, it involves intentionally keep practicing and understanding that you're going to probably say things wrong sometimes. And what you are thinking and what comes out of your mouth doesn't always match perfectly, but you keep practicing. And practice is an exercise in humility because we realize that we're not perfect. Cooking involves practice. It's interesting to me because Darlene, quite often, if she finds a new dish and she wants to cook it for company, she usually will cook it ahead of time once. She likes to practice. So the reality is, every day of our life, we are all practicing things. So one of the things the book brought out was this amazing fact, and I looked it all up. I did it myself to be sure it was accurate, and it was accurate. But it says that the Greek word Christian is only used 3 times in the entire New Testament, which to me is incredible because everybody today refers to themselves who are believers, oh, I'm a Christian. But that actual Greek word's only used 3 times in the entire New Testament, where the Greek word disciple, which is also translated as an apprentice or follower, is used 245 times. And it means a learner who learns by use and practice. So the emphasis here is it's not just in the name, it's what are we learning? What are we practicing? And the other thing is what we are learning is what we are using and practicing. The more we use something, the more we practice something. That's what we are learning. Are we practicing kindness? Are we practicing being careful and intentional with the words that we say? Are we practicing prayer? I've been practicing all my life, and believe me, I feel like I got a lot of practice yet to do. I'm not there yet. Are we practicing the presence of God every day? 1 John 1 and verse 6 says, if we have fellowship with him while we walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. So 1 John talks a lot about this. What are we practicing? Are we practicing sinning? Are we practicing righteousness? What we are practicing is a reflection of who we are. Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 to 27. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice, this is Jesus talking to everyone, hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock, and the rain came down and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone, there's the everyone again, who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand, and the rain came and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Jesus is talking about everyone here. And what's profound to me is it wasn't the hearing his teachings that made the difference. It wasn't knowing them that made the difference. The deciding factor between standing or falling with a great crash was putting them into practice. Nobody wants their house to have a very great crash. So the very next verse, Matthew 7:28, when Jesus had finished these sayings, the crowds were amazed at his teaching. The crowds were amazed. They agreed with what he said. But all four of the gospel writers clearly and continually made a difference between the crowds and those who actually practiced. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And it's about a lifestyle. And Jesus as the truth is quickly and widely recognized. People want the truth. But Jesus as the way, like the way of life and the life, something we practice and actually live out. People don't seem to emphasize that as much. 2 Peter 1, verse 5 to 10 gives a list of character qualities to practice, and it ends by saying this in verse 10, therefore, brothers, be all the more diligent to confirm your calling and election, for if you practice these qualities, you will never fall. Your house will never crash. Hebrews 5 and verse 14, solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil. Having the power of discernment is something that most everybody I know wants. Distinguishing between good and evil. Well, how does it come? It comes by constant practice. That's what the book of Hebrews says. I'm going to conclude with something the Apostle Paul said in Philippians 4, verses 8 and 9. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there be any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. Wise words from the Apostle Paul. So my prayer is that we recognize all the things that we're doing in our everyday life that are actually practicing and leading us in a direction. My prayer is that we will be doers and not just hearers. My prayer is that in the storms of life that our houses will stand. My prayer is that peace is one of those things that you are practicing. So God bless you. Have a wonderful week.